Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully the audio is good. Was just having some audio issues before this, but hopefully everything is good. How are we doing today? Oh, got good viewership already. Out of the gate. What's up, Mark? What's up? Is it Halal? Halal? Justin is here. Chris is here. Andrea is here. Olaf, Carl, Dan, Justin, Tyree. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Trent, Keith. Greetings from Worcester. I don't know. That one always gets me. What hat will he have on? Hey, the trusty one. I keep losing hats. I don't know if anybody else has this problem. I get new hats all the time, and then they seem to disappear. I don't know what happens. And some of my hats get ruined by softball, and it's just, man, it's a whole hat situation. Okay, I'm already screen sharing, and I don't even know why. Okay, so we're back. Waiting for Kevin's hello, hello, hello. You know me so well. All right. A 2 a.m. start is rough, says Chris. All right, well, let's talk about what we're here for. This is a Frames-specific live stream. We are going to answer your questions about Frames. I am going to give you a sneak peek of a new 2.8 automatic CSS feature to get us started. And I will take a look at some of the newer frames that we've released to get us started, but then we will go right into questions. This new ACSS feature is hot off the press, so we'll see if it even works. I'm in this development branch, and we're gonna play around with it. Amanda's here, welcome, Amanda. Tobias is here. Justin loves sneak peeks. I like sneak peeks too. This is something that's it's not huge, but it is very helpful. And it's something that not a lot of people can do on their own, especially off the top of their head, right? So when you need it done, you're like, I don't know how to do that. And if automatic CSS could do it for you, that would be good. It also has some wrinkles in it. Like it's challenging in some ways that it's a little, what I would call extra challenging in a couple different ways. And so I've been kind of brainstorming and playing around with ways to overcome those challenges and just make it as easy on you as possible to get to the desired result, because CSS does not make it super easy or straightforward. And I think I've got it. I think I'm there. So let's take a look at that first, and then we'll take a look at some new frames, and then we'll get right into Q&A. And what Q&A for frames is basically like, if you have a question about Frames workflow, we can answer those. If you have a question about the whole class situation, or do I style classes? Do I style, it could be a beginner question, it could be an advanced question. If you are like, hey, Kevin, pull up this exact frame right here. I was trying to do something with it. I wasn't able to do it. Can you do it? Is it a problem? That kind of thing. We can investigate frames, whatever. It's open season. We're just doing this because we want to support you as much as possible in helping you use the product successfully, efficiently, in scalable, maintainable fashion, joyfully, okay, with less frustration. We're just here every single month, so we can help you figure stuff out. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to go to all pages. I'm going to go to add new page. And I was just reading the comments here as we do this. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so we'll publish, and edit. Okay, so you're tasked with creating a Masonry style layout. Okay, how are we gonna go about doing that? Now, I do wanna say, can I use, okay, let's type in Masonry here. There is a Masonry auto flow coming to CSS Grid. So in the future, this will be really nice, really nice. But as you can see right here, we're at 0% for is this actually like supported anywhere? 0 is about as low as you can possibly get. So that's out the window. You actually have to use CSS columns for this. And then there's some hiccups and challenges with columns that make it a little bit troubling. Like it supports column gap, but not row gap. Row gap not supported in columns. That makes it more challenging. So it's like, how do we get our row gap situation going? Well, with automatic CSS, hopefully this just does it all for you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw a div in here, and then I'm gonna say use query loop. And we are going to query from media. So I guess post type is media right here. And what I need to do is probably drop an image in here, and we're going to select this. And I think it's the post ID is what it wants. And there we go. It's pulling some images. We need to probably tell it where to pull these from. So I need to come down to include, and we'll do placeholders. Okay, there we go. So now it's gonna pull in whatever placeholder images are on this website. And there you go, so it's pulling them in, but that's clearly not a Masonry layout. So what we wanna do now, and there's gonna be a couple different ways to do this, try to create as much flexibility as possible. But if you think about this like CSS grid, it's basically just like, how many columns do you want? Like yeah, that would be the first question to ask. There is just gonna be a class called Masonry, I think. And then we can do a little trick with this. But the standard way to do it is just to say Masonry and then a number of columns. So like, for example, if we wanted a 3-column Masonry grid, we're almost there. Like just by doing that, we're almost there. But if you notice that we do have a row gap situation issue going on. And so I actually had to refactor the gap thing a little bit. And this is actually gonna bring more control to CSS grid and flex layouts as well. So if you know before we had column gap classes, so call gap, and that allowed you to set a column gap in flex, in grid, and in columns. But we didn't have a row gap. We only had call gap and gap. And then gap sets column and gap and row at the same time, but doesn't work on columns because there's no such thing as row gap on columns. And so a lot of people asked for row gap because some people do like, I think they're psychopaths, but they do like to set a column gap and a row gap into different values. I'm just joking, obviously, but that can look really janky if you don't know exactly what you're doing. But they wanted just row gap controls separate from column gap controls, separate from gap controls. So I've added those. So now row gaps are coming. So you have row gaps at every breakpoint. And the row gaps, here's the kicker, the reason why I added them, really, the reason why I added them is because I was like, well, people asked for them for grid and flex, and guess what? We can actually hijack them and make them work for this Masonry layout and for columns too. So if you've been using columns and you're like, there's no row gap, well, now you're gonna have a row gap for columns, you're gonna have a row gap for Masonry. And so what we can do here is we can just test this out. So we'll say row gap, and let's try like an M or something like that. And now you see you get the M row gap. And again, this is not, you can't just do this in CSS columns. You can only do this in automatic CSS. This is not a thing anywhere else, right? Now, obviously my column gap's not matching that. I have some sort of different column gap here. So if I wanted that to match, I could do call gap M. Now my gaps match perfect. My columns, my rows are symmetrical. Now, if you're like, well, I don't want to do 2 steps, I'd rather just do 1 step. Hey, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. So you can just take both of these off, and I hijacked the normal gap classes. Like if you just do a normal gap class, it works too. And you get automatic symmetrical gaps. You can get this at every breakpoint. And so you don't have to know anything about how CSS columns works. You don't have to know how these gaps are achieved. You could just tell automatic CSS what you want, and then you just get the result. And I think that's about as easy as we can possibly make it. You can change the columns at breakpoints as well. You can actually make this automatically responsive by setting I believe we can just do like a call width here. So if we did something like M, yeah, look at that. Now it's 2 columns. Now it's 1 column. So it's just automatically responsive. You don't even have to say, well, it's gotta be 2 at this breakpoint and then 1 at this breakpoint. You just set a width, which effectively is a minimum width in CSS columns. Now, if you're confused with all of this, what I also did, because I knew this would probably need to get done, you could go search for columns in ACSS documentation, and there is now documentation for this. Now, I haven't done documentation for Masonry yet. We'll add that. But all of your columns documentation is here. And this new stuff works, like notice version 2.8 plus, version 2.8 plus with the row gap situation. That's all coming in 2.8. So columns just got a lot more powerful. Masonry is now here. I think this is pretty fun. Okay, Amanda says this is going to be so useful. Quick and easy. Oh, by the way, keep this in mind, guys. I did it with an image, which you see a lot of Masonry stuff as images, but really, you could do this with almost anything, right? So if we went to here, let's just find a card. Let's go to template tag single, and let's just see if there's any cards we might want to toss in here. Because yeah, you could do it with like a product grid kind of situation. It'd probably be better if I just typed in card, I guess. Okay, so here's feature card echo. Let's just see what that does for us. Yeah, see, now this one's gonna bring in a whole bunch of, this one's more complicated than we need. I wanted a simple example. Okay, let's go here, let's go card. Let's try to find a simple card. Nope, see a process card that's gonna try to auto count. Article cards, I don't want to have to pull in articles. Feature card golf. Let's try feature card golf. Let's drop that in our container here. Okay, and then we're going to duplicate. Now, what we want is the only way to make these Masonry, which we can't really do with these, the only way you get Masonry with cards is if some cards have a lot more content than other cards. If your cards are symmetrical in the amount of content that they have, they're never going to be Masonry. So it is a little bit tougher to do with just regular cards, but it can be done. I think testimonials is actually a good way to go because testimonials always have that, variance in the length of, like, this guy left a short testimonial. This person left a long testimonial. That can be a really good situation for Masonry layouts. And I think I've showed that in a previous tutorial. So, but it will work for cards also. You just need cards that aren't symmetrical in their content length. All right, so let's take a look. That was Masonry. That was a little sneak peek at Masonry and some upgrades to CSS columns in automatic CSS. Let's take a look at some latest frames, and then we'll go right into questions. So a lot has been added, obviously, since our live in December. I'm not going to go through every new frame, but I just wanted to look at a couple here. Content section November. This was actually requested by somebody. They needed it kind of ASAP, so I whipped this one up for them. And if we look at this one, all these kind of have a little bit, some tricks up their sleeve, right? Like, a lot of people are going to like the 50-50 split, but if you don't like the 50-50 split, you kind of wanted a different split. Like, we have these locally scoped variables on a lot of frames, right? So you can easily just kind of control the look and feel without really diving into code or anything like that. You're just adjusting the media ratio, like the amount of overlap here. Come on, like how easy can your life possibly be? It's like, I don't want that to overlap. Oh, I want that to overlap more, even more. No, less. Okay, that's pretty easy. The media width, the media position, that's the object position, what part of the photo you actually see in the crop. The content box width, right? It's like, come on, like all these little control points, right? With great power comes great responsibility. You can F it up too. You can make it look really terrible. But it doesn't really get, much easier than that. So that's one of the new ones. We can also do content section Oscar was pretty cool. This is a little bit dependent on your typography. The cooler your typography is, the cooler this kind of layout is going to look. With our kind of corporate-y typography, it doesn't look all that great. But if you had more flowy, I don't know, big, obviously this says a big bold headline goes here too, so you'd want to adjust the size of this. But But down here, you've got this little image group layout, which by the way is a separate frame. It's image group kilo. You could insert this anywhere you wanted it to. And I thought, what's cool about this concept is it does make use of the captions. And these are actually real captions. So if you're not gonna see an extra element in here, it's actually the caption that is attached to, you can do a custom caption right here. You can pull the caption dynamically from the media gallery, but it's gonna put a little caption above your photos, which kind of adds a little bit of life to the layout, but also more context to the actual images. These are in the Fig caption tag. So in terms of code, this is all done properly. So that's cool. I like that layout. Let's open this. What other one do we want to look at real quick? There's the image group kilo right there all by itself if you wanted to just throw that one in. Pricing grid mic or pricing section mic really was a really good one. We'll drop that in. This one had some tricks up its sleeve as well. Just a note right here. This will actually get better with the new contextual colors in automatic CSS, but notice that this frame is just pulling default heading colors, of which there isn't one right now. So if you want them to be white, you actually go to the class and then you just have to put the color on there. Then they'll all have it, right? That's what's good about classes. But sometimes when you pull in like this heading right here, obviously didn't get it. Oh, I do want to show you this. This is actually a good time to show you this. If you've tried to use inheritance before, like text white, for example, on a container, it never affected the headings. And that was because of specificity issues. But I found a way to make it affect the headings without increasing the specificity. So that's another improvement in 2.8. So if you're using inheritance on containers for text colors and stuff like that, they will extend now to the headings in those containers, unless those headings have their own specific color already defined. But if it's a heading that does not have a color instruction on it yet, it will inherit this from the utility class. But I can just come in here. See, and this is a situation where you can't just assign white to intro alpha heading, because if you use intro alpha heading in other sections that aren't dark, that's not gonna make any sense, right? So we really just want this to be a one-off kind of color. So I can just do that at the ID level. And this is the kind of stuff we can talk about in the Q&As, right? If this stuff does not make sense to you, then ask about it. Ask about it, because I can explain it in more detail. But check out this this little pricing table here. I think I've shown this before on a live stream, but it's got that cool little like follow your mouse to the different plans. So there's a lot of math involved here. A lot of that's not even a card really. It's just a box that floats inside of that container, and it just aligns perfectly to make it look like that's a card, but it's not really a card. So that one's pretty cool. It also supports 2, 3, or 4 plans automatically without breaking. So that's good. Okay. All right, I think we're warmed up. We're ready for questions. Make sure you have a queue. I like what Paul at WP Tuts was doing, little hashtag queue. It's good. That makes it super obvious. I don't know if I can search for, oh, I can. Oh, look at that. That's why he does it, I bet, because I can search in my little, right here in Ecamm for hashtag Q. So let's use hashtag Q, and that should isolate all of the actual questions from general banter and such. Any questions about frames, process, workflow, or anything else? I'm just gonna catch up on chat real quick while those come in. 16 likes already, cool. Granted, we all know it's worth it. Okay, let's throw some more likes up. Well, we got a good audience for this. This is fantastic, I love it. All right, let me go down. I'm still at the top of the chat. Still going through all the welcome stuff. Just wanna make sure I didn't miss anything important. Okay. You already talked about it in another video, but I would like to get more explanation about overlapping content when you want content of one section to overlap previous or next section. Okay, we can probably do that. Oh, I tried to add the monthly annual selector and this mic grid. I get a weird slide in effect when I switch between them on this one. Okay. I wonder if searching for hashtag Q pulls up. Let's test out this. Q? Oh, so yeah, if you do hashtag Q or hashtag question, it comes up either way. So that's good. All right, so now I've isolated to just questions. So we'll get to answering. All right, so these questions right here are always easier to answer if you have an example. And here's why. Because overlapping content, there's no less than 7 ways, maybe more than 7. There's probably more than 7. There's no less than 7 ways to overlap content in web design, right? And so what we tend to do is look at a situation and say, okay, based on that, what we want to achieve here right now, this is probably the way to go. But that could be a completely different thing if you give me a completely different look and situation that you're trying to achieve, right? So I'm not sure what you want me to do necessarily, except for like maybe just give like one example. We can't go over all the examples. I'm gonna do, let me try to use the context menus as much as possible here. So there's this section that's like light gray, okay? So we'll just put in a heading here, okay? I'm a section. And then let's say that like this container right here, we wanted to overlap on top of that section, right? So I'll just give this a background color so we can see that. And let's add some text in here. Overlap me. And I'm going to select the container and I'll use a text color class. Let's do something like ultra light. And then let's do some padding in here as well. And you know, it's great that you get the live preview with these context menus. All right, so here we are. We want to overlap this box on top of this section up here. Now there's the down and dirty way to do this. Then there's the like, no, we're going to take a structured, maintainable, math-based approach to this. I see people do it both ways. I tend to be the, let's take a math-based approach to this. Now it also depends on what else is going to be in this section, what we're about to do right now. See, there's a lot of unless we see what we're trying to build, there's always like caveats and catches. But one thing you can think about doing is, first of all, what's the easiest way for me to get this box towards this section? Well, the easiest way to start is just to get rid of the padding that's up top, right? Now, again, if there was stuff above, I don't know. I don't know what we're trying to do here, but just with what we've got, I mean, let's just get rid of space we don't need right now, which is that top padding, right? Now I've got to figure out, see, that has taken me as far as I can go. So now to go further, what I need to do is use negative margin. This is one way to do it. I'll show you another way to just to demonstrate why things are not always as they seem on the internet in CSS land. But if I wanted to go to negative margin, right? I would prefer to have something I know the value of and don't have to remember the value of, which would be a token, like if I did space M. Now, if I just put space M here, it's gonna go down. That's a positive value, right? But if I select space M, let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see that, okay? If I do something like space dash M times -1, that will make it a negative value. And now without ACSS, you can't do it like this, but with automatic CSS, it'll automatically generate the calcs and the vars. Okay, so that's good. And notice that it's overlapping. And now I could say something like space L, XL, I can just dial it in, just like that. XXL keeps going. Notice that it will start to overlap other content. So we're gonna have to deal with that in just a second. And to make this extreme, I'll just keep it on XXL. Okay, so, and this is more of a, I guess, this is just a general web design tutorial at this point. It's not really, doesn't have anything to do with frames. So I'm gonna, do this as quickly as possible, then we'll get on to frames. So we have this space XXL value. And what we would need to do now is come in here to the section we're actually overlapping and add space XXL to what's already there. And this is really where the benefit of these variables really comes in, because I don't know what the value is of that padding off the top of my head. In terms of like, is it 90? Is it 100? What does it calculate to? Don't know, don't care. What I do know is that's just generic section padding. That's medium section padding in ACSS. So we can do section padding im, right? If I put that, I'm sorry, section space im. There's no section padding variable. It's all space. So section space im gets me exactly, look, there's no change. So without that, it looks like that. And with that, it looks like that. Why? Because by default, that is the value, right? But if I add space XXL, for example, and let me var this manually because I don't think it's going to do that. Space XXL, okay? And then we're going to wrap that in a calc. Now look what's happened. I've got still my standard section padding, which is fantastic, but I also have this overlap. And that's the value of like, I don't need to know numbers. I just need to know what the variable names are that are being used. Okay, I use space XXL to overlap, so it makes sense that I need to add space XXL to my typical default section padding, and I get a perfect effect. Get a perfect effect. That's one way to do it. Now, let's quickly just undo that and show one other thing. So I'm gonna take the negative margin off of here, back to where we were with the padding removed from this section. But here's how you can fake it. So you can have real overlaps. That was a real overlap. This would be a fake overlap. And there's actually multiple ways to do this. There's multiple ways to do the fake overlap. I can do a box shadow. So on the y-axis, let's do 100, okay, and see where we're at. We're gonna go 0. Actually, we want 100 on the spread, probably. And let's just get a color in here, okay? And we want this to be an inset box shadow. So look what that just did. I think we actually may want to go 0, okay? No, we want to go maybe 0 there. I don't do this often. There we go. Okay, but it actually needs to be positive. There we go. Now, if I have the inner box shadow, the inset box shadow, set to the same color as that section up there, which I think I used neutral ultralight. Yeah, save, okay? Now let's get out of the builder so we don't see all the lines. Look at that. Doesn't that look like it's overlapping? But it's not. It's not really overlapping. It's not a physical overlap. And I can dial it in by changing the value here. So if I just want it to look like it's overlapping just a little bit, let's close that. Let's get rid of some tabs. See how it's over? Well, maybe you guys can't even see that. Let's go BG base medium. Okay, let's get something. That's good. That's obvious, right? It's obvious. Let's go here to base medium. Okay, now we save. Now go here. That's obvious, right? So it looks like it's overlapping, not actually really overlapping. You're just getting the effect that it's overlapping. This is one of like 10 ways now. Now I've convinced myself there's way more than 7 ways to do this. You could do it with a gradient, a fake gradient, a hard edge gradient. That's another way to do it. You could do it with translate. When do you want to translate versus do negative margin? Well, some situations might call for that. Man, we could just keep going. So like I said in the beginning, it's easier when you have an actual example because then we can explain why we're doing it one way versus another way, rather than just like, here are all the ways you can make things overlap. We could do a CSS grid. We could do it, man, I mean, I just keep going. We could just do it many, many, many different ways. All right. Hopefully somewhere in there, you found some sort of an answer that you were looking for. Can you demo the mic price grid with the monthly annual toggle component? Let's come back to that. That can be probably, but that's going to get us in the weeds right off the bat. Like, because you're going to need a duplicate of the pricing grid. It's just, yeah, well, let's come back to that. I think I can star it. I can star it and we can come back to it. Okay. Let's see. What are your thoughts about the live stream from yesterday? We'll star that and get back to that one as well, since it's not technically frames related. All right, when you insert a new frame, do you recommend renaming the frame classes to your own using BIM? Now I do. Now that we have auto BIM. Before we had auto BIM, and before the class manager really here in Bricks, I was saying no, because it's a lot of extra work. But with auto BIM, it's not too much extra work. So let's talk about that. To talk about this, we actually have to talk about how certain frames are going to be used. And then we also need to understand the modular nature of frames, that there are actually frames inside of frames. So let's go with just a section frame. It's probably going to get us going here. So let's bring in. Okay, and yeah, this might be a good example. Let's bring in pricing section bra. Apparently played with on this looks absolutely awful. These are not part of the actual frame. Okay, let's get rid of those. I think that's more like what the frame gives you as a starting point. So before I do anything, I want to decide, like, am I going to auto BIM this? Now, this intro frame is a frame in itself. And this intro, if you've noticed, gets used a lot of places. It's a very standard pattern for like an introduction to a section. We have a lot of them. So if you go to here and you go to intro, it's going to show you all of the intro, like introduction patterns, basically. That's why I like the word patterns in Gutenberg, because they literally are patterns in UX and UI. So this clearly we're going to use everywhere. So do we want that to be called FR Intro Alpha? No, not really. It would be, now here, see, naming things on the internet is hard. In web design, naming things is hard. You can't just call it intro, because the minute you have a different style of intro, what are you going to call that one, right? So you could call this like centered intro maybe, because maybe your other one is going to be like a left aligned intro. I don't know. You can also left align this. Like there's so many different approaches. You could have a modifier class. Like if you did go intro, you could do intro left or intro centered. You could, like, man, you could just leave it as FR Intro Alpha if you wanted to. I do that a lot too. If you don't really care that it has the frame's names. But to answer your question, what we would want to do is come in and auto BIM this, right? And so notice I auto BIMmed not the whole section, because the whole section is not using BIM, okay? This component right here, intro alpha, actually has element children. So I can BIM that. Now, what I want to do, because of the way Bricks handles renaming of classes, that doesn't actually make unique classes that are mine. If I want to make unique classes that are mine, I need to create new and delete the old ones, okay? And I want to do this before I add a bunch of intros all over the place. But I can just decide what my name is going to be. I'll just say it's going to be intro. We'll just centered intro. We'll give it a little bit of context. So centered intro, create new, delete old. It shows you what it's going to do to all of my element children. And I can also choose if I want to sync the labels. I don't really want to in this regard. I do want to copy the styles. I don't want to lose the styling that's involved here. And I hit apply classes, and it's going to have a little confirmation step. And there we go. And so now look, centered intro heading, centered intro accent heading. This is mine now, okay? So to show you this, what I can do is I'll come into background as an example, and we'll just make this super ugly. Okay, I will do some padding in here. All right, and that's probably all we need to do. Now I'm gonna refresh the builder, just make sure Bricks hasn't lost its mind. We'll go to templates, we'll go to intro. The benefit of doing this is that I get a brand new copy of intro alpha, like that is unadulterated, right? It's like it hasn't had all this stuff done to it. And it's still using FR Intro Alpha and all the old, typical classes that you would get. The only difference is it still has, I had already styled the Alpha heading one, so that's still having styles there. We'll just remove that, okay? Good. So I have a fresh copy. And now I can actually do this and I could auto BIM this one and just create a whole new copy that's mine. And I can just keep doing that out of the library, going back and getting the default version. Now, some people don't care. Some people are like, dude, I never want the default ever again. I just want that one, and I just want to, then you don't have to do this, right? So let me make this not so ugly. Let's get rid of that, okay? And text align's fine there. Okay, let's get rid of the padding. Awesome. Okay, so that's back to the way that we wanted it. Now, if you are gonna go this route of making it your own intro, important step that I would highly recommend. Let's change this to centered intro. I would right click this and I would save it as a template to your library, right? My templates, these are mine now, all right? And you do centered intro, and you save, and there it is. So if you want the styled version, you come here and add it. If you want the unstyled version, you go back to frames and add it from the frames library. Once you've auto-bimmed and created new, deleted old, and made your own copy of it, it needs to go in your own library because the default version is gonna stay in the frames library, if that makes sense. That's the workflow that I use when I do auto-bim like that, and that's the workflow that I recommend. Now, you might look at something like Price Card Bravo, okay? If you're like, dude, we're never gonna have like another pricing grid. It's just, these are the pricing cards that we're gonna have. And I know nobody has a crystal ball, but typically you don't have a bunch of different pricing tables all over a website, right? And if you were gonna have that, you'd know it ahead of time. So if you're like, nah, I just want to name it something different. I don't need to create it new and delete old. I don't need a fresh copy out of the library at any point in time. Then you can just come in here and bulk rename, and you don't even have to use AutoBIM. You could use AutoBIM to do that, but you can actually just use the new Global Class Manager. So this is Price Card Bravo. So you can open this, you can search for Price Card Bravo, and then you could just select all these, and you could do, the renaming, whatever, features they have here in the Class Manager for you, and just rename it. It won't be unique, right? But it'll at least won't have the classes will have a different name, and it'll be named whatever you want. So, but again, the context is what matters here. Like, it's a price card. So if it's a feature card, different story. Like, we're gonna use feature cards everywhere and different kinds of feature cards, but a price card is a situation where it's like, once we've designed a price card for this site, we're not gonna have 80 different price cards, okay? So you may not need to go through the create new, delete old kind of process. And that's why it's so like, people ask the questions of like, when is this? When it's that stupid answer that everybody hates to hear. It depends. Like, it depends on a lot of things, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do this, the approach that you're gonna take. I wish it didn't depend. I wish I could just give a blanket answer that's like, do this in every single situation. But in web design, there's always like 10 ways to skin that poor cat that just keeps getting skinned over and over and over again. All right, let's go into chat again and grab another question. Man, everybody wants to know what I think about the interview with Thomas. All right, let's see. Good use of time to dissect a more complex frame and the BIM, a frame that has other frames inside it, and decide how to rename. So that's what we just did a little bit. If you guys have a specific example that you want, like, hey, what would you do with this one, right? Then call out a name of a frame and I will pull that in. It was asked before, but you got interrupted. When you decide to pass a site to a client to edit, modify, what is the best way to set up only reusable blocks? So he only uses pre-made style blocks. The things that a client needs to edit are very minimal. And when they do need to edit something, it can almost always just be handled with custom fields. So I'm trying to think of a scenario, like right here. Let's go to team, or I think they're called profile, right? Profile. These are going to be like all of your team cards, okay? So let's do something like profile section delta. All right. I'm purposefully on our 2.8 branch, by the way, because I'm looking to see if there's any issues with some of the stuff that we changed. Okay. And this site may not have, I wonder if this has auto gapping on. Let's go down here. Let's just check our settings. See what has been done lately. Spacing. This is the dev branch. So I change settings like all the time on here. Never know what they're set to. This is the wild, wild west right here. Okay. Because I'm identifying a problem with grid. I wonder if grid gap. No, it appears fine. Okay, whatever. What about container gap? There it is. That's what and that's actually why we're doing this. See how is FR container gap? We're actually deprecating FR container gap into just container gap. And in the 2.8 branch, that deprecation appears to have some sort of an issue. So Andrea, I think Andrea's here. If you can make a little note for me to double check the deprecation of FR container gap. All right, we'll switch that to container gap. Okay, save here. So very plausible that on a team-oriented website where you're gonna have, here's all of our team members. It could be authors on a blog. It could be a lot of different things. But like the client, we could see the client coming in and wanting to add new team members, remove team members, change data for team members. And if it's a situation where maybe each team member has a profile page, like with a bio and some stats, like how long they've been with the team, what is their favorite fucking food, and all this other stuff that Bev comes up with, right? It makes sense that they would be able to edit those things, because that is, and that's perfectly fine. So when you hear me say don't let the client edit the website, I'm not talking about this kind of stuff. This is a relatively safe thing for the client to do. If you set this up with query loops, if you set this up with ACF or MetaBox, custom fields, custom data, they can just go in, they know how to add a new team member, pop in the bio, fill out all the favorite food stuff, and hit publish. They don't ever touch bricks. They don't ever touch the actual site. But through that process, they're able to update content, okay? And why do I let them do that kind of stuff? Because like, it's very hard to screw up. You know, they might, what's the worst they can do? Forget the headshot or something. Forget to add a featured image, which we can have a backup for. It'll show one of these little things, right? So that's fine. It's not content that influences SEO. It's not content that influences conversion in any major way. So they're not really in danger of harming anything that we've tried to do in our efforts, right? Now, do you think I let people go into sales pages and just willy-nilly change like headlines and images and copy? And no, not unless they sign a waiver that says Kevin is no longer responsible for the results or conversion rate on this particular website. Now, if they want to sign one of those, they can go do whatever they want. But you ain't gonna hold me responsible for all that shit you did, like tinkering around on Saturday afternoon with all the important stuff. Why aren't we ranking anymore? I don't know, ask Bev. What did she change on the sales page? That kind of stuff, right? But this is super safe. This is super safe. And very easy to do with frames. You go in, add the fields in ACF, the CPT, you loop this bad boy, you drop the dynamic data in, you hit publish, you're off to the races. That kind of stuff all day long. I'm making sure there wasn't an additional part to your question. What is the best way to set up only reusable blocks? So yeah, you're not setting up you're not setting up anything except the custom fields. You still handle the configuration of everything in bricks. All they do is fill out custom fields and hit publish. If they want to delete a team member, they can delete the team member. Or like I showed, you can add a switch, just hide a team member, because sometimes that's a thing, you know, in certain situations. So yeah. That's the extent of it. Don't let your clients into bricks, if at all possible. Anything they need to edit, change, got to be handled with custom fields. The only thing I don't like about searching for hashtag Q is I can't see any comments anymore. All I can see are questions. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and check the normal chat here in just a minute. For tabs Bravo, what is the best way to have the words text stay together for the text on the navigation tabs? Man, I swear, we're gonna need, we might need to put tabs Bravo on a separate payment plan. Like this frame gets the most questions out of any frame. Tabs Bravo, here we go. All right. Let's wrap this in a container and let's wrap that in a section. Okay, get some structure here. All right, let's look at this on the front end. Okay, what are you asking now? What is the best way to have the words text stay together for the text on the navigation tabs? Words text stay together. I'm just trying to understand what that means. Words text stay together. Aren't these staying together? Words text stay together. Can anybody clarify that for me? Let me hop back to chat. Let me go down. What does this mean? What does this mean? Okay. Oh God, there's a lot of chat. See, I'm missing all the chat when I have to search for questions. Menus are a classic example of the stuff the client wants to edit all the time. No, you know, when they, here's how you handle that. Here's their hand coming in. You just a little of that usually takes care of it. No, like menus is something, oh my God, you put Bev loose on a menu? Nope. That's a hard pass. Yeah, don't let them edit menus. No, that F's with user experience, SEO, conversion, everything. You're letting them, that's the keys to the kingdom, my friend. They cannot mess with navigation. So easy to screw up. Oh man, no. Just a little one of those, good to go. I'm joking. Do not get physically violent with your, do I have to actually say this? Does there have to be a disclaimer? Okay, let's see. I would love for Kevin to make a whole video on using frames and BIM and using the same frame on different pages that have different styling. We are going to do, we're going to do, like I mentioned a couple of times, start to finish, starting in Figma, wireframe, over to Tommy, UI, back to me for dev, and you'll see the entire process. We're gonna do that like once a quarter. And it's gonna be custom from scratch. Okay. I remember that Bricks allows us to give clients permission to edit via Bricks without breaking the layout, but only replace content like image, text, and using Bricks Builder interface. I've never even looked at that. I just say, hey, just don't, custom fields is the easiest way to go. Plus, it's good for just you too. Custom fields help you. We don't all want to go into the, like if I wanted to add a new team member, I don't want to go into the builder to add a new team member. I want to add it through custom fields and publishing and just be done. I don't want to mess with Bricks. Had Bev accessing and editing the menu, there were menu items as long as a short story. Absolutely, yeah. Should put a whole damn paragraph in there for like, oh, they won't know what it is if I don't. Yeah, it's, man. Kevin's How to Slap Your Client, new YouTube channel. Okay, let's go with, back to Q. I still haven't gotten clarification on what that question was asking about keeping content together on the tabs. So I will move on for now, but we can always come back to tabs Bravo if we need to. All right, let's go to what would be needed to integrate frames with build areas. I can't get too much into what we're working on. I'm going to say that it could be possible, not in the very near future, but in the future, it could absolutely be possible. What we can't do, it's not plausible for us to like go into build areas and build every frame from scratch. That is not plausible. That is not going to happen. The only way that would happen is if it is just a gigantic market, which build areas is not right now, just objectively speaking. If you had a major market, it would be worth it. But for a small user base, it's just not going to be, that's not even remotely plausible. So we have to find a way to do it automatically, and that's going to take some time. It is on our radar, but we have a lot of things on our radar. The radar has a lot of blips on it, okay? So just got to hang tight. Can you explain a bit of the new trend of components and why is this so hot in terms of expectations? How is a component better than a class first style way of doing things? It's not, it's better, but it also goes hand in hand. It's not like we're not going to be switching really from one to the other necessarily. But I've demonstrated it before. It's, you have to use your imagination because we can't build like an entire 80-page website, but let's come down to, let's just start with a section. Okay, let's just do testimonial section Bravo. Pop that in. Okay, so we design these testimonial cards, right? And we use them lots and lots and lots and lots of places. Well, we know that we want a single source of truth for how this thing is styled. Yes, we all know that. That's why we're using BIM, right? which is already kind of happening here, okay? So I'm free to use that as many times as I want into the millions. And if Bev comes along and she's like, nah, we gotta change their colors or round those corners. Even just something as simple as rounding the corners. Well, I can go in here and I can go to border, and in the radius box, I can just say, we're gonna go with M. And now we have rounded corners on every instance of those cards. Everywhere across the website, we've now rounded the corners. Man, that is so fantastic. Bev, Bev loves this too, because she doesn't even have to get a bill for that. Bev, I'll just handle that for you for free. Don't worry about it, okay? Because I've made it so easy on myself. Now, what's not so easy? Okay, let's take a look. So Bev says something like, you know what? The stars, we need those to go to the top, okay? So I could drag that up here, all right? And womp womp, that did not happen on these other cards. So you could say something like, well, Kevin, I mean, we could use the order property. Well, we could, except for that's in a wrapper with this reviewer name to keep those items grouped together in case they both need to move, which if they both need to move, that's fine, because we could use like order property and flex order to just pop them to the top. There might be some CSS ways to handle that, but here's, you know what? There's no absolute way, there's absolutely zero way really to handle this request with CSS. We want an icon. Okay, so I'm gonna put an icon in here. Let's drop an icon. We want that to be at the top, right? And I'm not gonna bother selecting, an icon other than I'll just search for star. Oh, it's already is a star. I hate that star though. That star is so ugly. Okay, let's just do this, like the brand logo or something. Okay, great, fantastic. How in the world am I gonna get that into all the other instances of this card? How in the world is that gonna happen? Well, I'll tell you how it's gonna happen. You are going to live the life of a chump for a while. And you're gonna go in here and go fucking paste, and then into the paste. Now, if you are in, I can't paste on here because it's not SSL, but you get the point. Now, loops will save you a little bit. If you loop these cards, you only have to paste it into the main loop card, right? Then it's gonna, go to all the others. The problem is that doesn't happen page to page to page to page to page. So you've used this grid on 15 different pages. That's at least minimum 15 edits. You gotta go edit every loop and put that icon in every loop. And God forbid she tries to add something else on you, right, after you do that. So you almost gotta get her to sign off like, Bev, I got a waiver for you, okay? This is the only thing you're gonna add to these testimonial cards, right? Right? Okay, sign right there, all right? And then you can go do it. Because it's a nightmare. With components though, not a nightmare. As easy as I change that border radius on every card on this website, I can add an icon to every single one. I can add whatever I want to every one. I can change the order. I can do whatever I want to every instance because of components. So you have to remember that CSS is for global control of how something is styled, but that CSS can't reach into the HTML. That CSS can't reach into the JavaScript associated with this card. What if I had a bunch of interactions programmed into these cards? What if I had a bunch of conditions or something? Like, I don't know, we're just making things up. But anything involving PHP, HTML, or JavaScript, not necessarily tied to classes. I know interactions are in a way. I don't think conditions are at all. So I don't know, there's just a lot more control. It's a lot more control. So that's what it's gonna bring to the table. It's true global control. Because now I can do things globally that I was not previously able to do with just classes. Now you can still use BIM in these things, okay? Or you can use utility classes. If you're gonna go the component route, it actually opens the door to just using pure utility classes, which is why you're gonna want a framework that's fully featured, right? You want a fully featured framework because when you start using utility classes, if the utility classes aren't there, well, I mean, what are you gonna do now? Like go make them on your own? Like, well, come on, what are we doing? Are we trying to save time and save money? Or are we trying to waste time and waste money? So it's nice to just have a full library already available to you where you can do all the flexes, the whatever you need to do. I mean, with ACSS, you can do overlapping advanced grids with utility classes, pure utility classes, no CSS. So that's good. I think that answers that question. Let's move on. How would you charge for a wireframe built with frames as a separate deliverable? I currently present a text wireframe to the client for their approval that I don't charge for. Oh my gosh, AT, my man. I'm about to make you so much more money. It's not even funny. It's just silly how much money you are about to make. You're gonna start charging for every wireframe screen. You're going to wireframe those screens with frames, ideally in frames for Figma, not in bricks, okay? Now, that's a whole workflow conversation. Let's say you just wanna start by doing it in bricks. Just get your feet wet, okay? All right, you can do it in bricks. So you're gonna wireframe, first of all, this goes in the proposal and in the statement of work, and this is part of your process. This is the process every website goes through. Mr. Client, here's what we do. We do discovery first, because we ain't building stuff unless we know exactly what needs to be built, right? If you know, you're gonna build a house, you can't just bring the construction crew and be like, have at it, okay? There's gotta be a blueprint. They gotta know what they're about to build. So discovery and then UX are gonna kind of make that blueprint. Who's it for? Why are we doing this? What's it gonna say? All that SEO, architecture, that's all discovery. Then UX is all the wireframing. That's the actual literal blueprint. And so you're gonna tell the client, let's say it's a 10-page website, Mr. Client, we need 10 wireframes. Here's the cost for those wireframes. Now you get to decide the cost, AT, but I'm not doing wireframes. I mean, 200, 300 bucks a screen, easy, minimum. Because it's not just like randomly adding frames, right? There's thought that goes into it. We're thinking about the narrative we want to tell. There's a lot of purpose, right? We're also starting to do some of the copy planning and things like that. So 200, 300 a screen, that's not outlandish. Now, right there, let's just say it's 200. I just made you $2,000 extra on this project, right? Then we're not even done. Okay, then it's got to go to UI. Well, I got to pay somebody to do this UI, and they're going to charge me every one of those screens to do it. Okay, so now I got to charge the client for the UI every screen, 300 bucks, 400 bucks, what's it going to be? You decide. It can be whatever you want. But there's the next chunk. Then guess what? It hasn't even started to be developed yet. So now we got the development thing. Now, do we have to go through this process? Yeah, in fact, we do. Because if you don't go through that process, it's a lot of headaches, it's a lot of nightmares, it's a lot of working backwards, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And it's just wishy-washy back and forth. So what we do is wireframe, green light, great? It does not go to UI until it has a green light on a wireframe. Then it goes to UI. Once it comes out of UI, it's got to get a green light before it goes to dev. That way, you know what happens in dev? Bliss. Hey, I got my screens. I know exactly what I need to build. And guess what? Because it was all based on frames, I just go in and if you did it in bricks, it's already there. If you did it in frames for Figma, you just add all the same frames and then you style them up the way the UI says to style them up. And you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder like, oh, we gotta change that and change this and go backwards and da. Nope, it's already been greenlit. It's already been approved. We can tackle that stuff after this website is launched, okay? Might make a small, tiny tweak or adjustment here or there. That's not a big deal. But anything that's a big deal, nope, sorry, this has already been greenlit. It's good. Now, obviously, some things might come up that are very important. It's like, no, we can't go live that way. We made a mistake in we greenlit the wrong thing. Okay, well, that's a very simple fix. We give what's called a change order, and we say, here is the official change, right? You already greenlit something. Now there's got to be an official change. Here's the change order. Here's the price for the change. We're not doing this for the same price that we agreed to earlier. That work's already been done, right? This is new work. So change order, and here's what it's gonna do to the timeline, and they sign it, right? So they say, yes, we are changing things, and we understand that this is a cost, and we understand that this is going to do something to the timeline that we cannot complain about later, because they will, Absolutely. Try to complain about it later. You know that, I know that. So this is all just crossing T's, dotting I's, professionalism, covering the bases, okay? Making sure everybody's on the same page, because clients will take advantage of you too. If you're like, okay, all right, we'll just do that one more thing. Okay, and then here's Bev again the next day, and it never stops, does it? You know that. I know that. It never stops. They will take advantage of you. They might not even be meaning to take advantage of you. They just are. That's just the facts, right? So change orders prevent all of that. See what we do on a Frames live stream. Now we're into business. Now we're into pricing. I mean, it's fantastic though, right? You get good value. So look, bottom line, AT, you're gonna make a lot more money. Absolutely charge for every wireframe. Absolutely charge again for every UI screen. Absolutely charge again to build the thing. 3 stages, gotta go through that process, right? You don't go in a pizza shop and it's like, oh, okay, like just, hey, can you just take some out of the freezer and throw? No, that's not the kind of pizza we make here. Mr. Client, we got our process, right? We use the best tomatoes, the best sauce, we make everything by hand. It's got to go into the oven for this amount of time. Okay, everybody should have their professional process for how to do things. This needs to be yours. No more winging it. No more, oh, I'm AT, I do free work. I do wireframes for free. I sit around pondering how this website should be laid out as a gift to every client that comes through the door. No, that is a deliverable. That is your expertise and your brain being exercised. Or somebody's got to do it. Because the other thing here too, people have a little bit of trouble thinking about this when they're the business owner who's actually working in the business. But most business owners, like real legit businesses, like, and I'm talking bigger businesses, the CEO, the president, or whatever, they're not like flipping the burgers. You know what I'm saying? Like even in tech companies, right? I don't think you're going to see Elon Musk, drilling a door onto the side of a Tesla. Like other people handle that kind of stuff. Well, those people are not free. So if you aren't going to do the wireframing, who is? And how are you not going to pay them somehow? You are going to pay them. That's not going to work. So there is a position where that thing has to be done by a person, and that person has to get paid. So the only way to make that compute is to put a charge on that deliverable. So no more free work, no more free wireframes. Wireframes you charge for, UI you charge for. How am I going to get it if I'm not doing the design? How in the world am I going to get Tommy to do a design for free? This is not going to work. He's going to charge me, so I got to charge somebody else. And then dev. That's obvious, right? We're not going to build websites for free. Okay, so we got to charge for that. So every step gets billed for. No more free work, AT. You're going to make a lot more money. That's the good news. You're going to make a lot more money. And if you go watch my Process is Everything Masterclass, which is free, it's 100% free, on YouTube. Go search for Geary Process is Everything. And it's 3 hours long, and it's the best 3 hours you've ever spent in your life in terms of your business. It's called Process is Everything because literally the title is facts. Process is everything. So you go watch that, and then you're gonna know how to communicate your process, why you need to communicate your process, and then by communicating your process in the right way, when you have the right process and you communicate it in the right way, you can charge way more. You can get way less objections when you say, hey, we got to do UX, that's going to be this cost, UI is going to be this cost. If they don't understand why, they're just going to be like, well, I don't understand. My brother Johnny said he could do this. And it's like, I know, that's fine. Go hire Johnny. But this is how we do things. And yeah, you're going to make a lot more money. Your projects are going to be much more seamless. It's going to be nice all around. You guys like how on the screen down here, Bricks like throws random elements around when you import them sometimes? That's fun. Okay, that was more in depth, I think, than we intended. Let's go on to the next one. If I have the same template on 2 different pages, but want to style them differently, what is the best way to do it? I can't just rename frames classes since it affects the whole site. Fantastic. Good question, Rob. Okay. Let's use a content frame because this would happen most often on content frames. Let's use content section Mike. Okay, look at this. Nice little frame, nice unique little layout. Okay, let's drop that in there. We got a little card right here. Okay, this little call out inner. Looks like it's gonna need a little bit of a background color here. Let's just pop that in. Okay, let's take a look at this on the front end. Okay, so this is like a one-off frame. You know, you use it here and then you might use it somewhere else. Now, this one in particular, this line color, maybe you want to make a dark version of it, for example. Let's see how easy it would be to make a dark. That's the first question we have to ask ourselves. The second question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to try to use like a modifier class type situation for this? So content section mic has an inner. We could actually auto BIM this entire thing because they're all FR content section mic. All of this stuff belongs to FR content section mic. There's no grid that's a separate block or anything like that. Let's just see what auto BIM does to handle this. And off the rip, it looks like absolute perfection. So it has identified that we're gonna be renaming or creating new and deleting old and all of that, okay? We'll say create new and delete old, copy styles, and look what it's done. It's automatically said, but we're not gonna do anything to this intro stuff because that appears to be different, right? So it's excluded the intro, which is correct. That is a separate frame that we don't wanna mess with. And so it's only letting us auto BIM all the stuff that's actually BIMable. So I can say content. And then see, this is where like I just leave them because it's like, why do I want to come up with a name for this? What am I going to call this? Like two column content or something? And then is that really better than content section mic? I don't really know. Like to me, renaming is not super important unless you are going to need a fresh copy of this at some point. But for most frames, you really don't. All right, so let's do that. And let's go down and check all this. I mean, look at this, 2-column content inner middle. Let's go deep into this bad boy down here, call out text. 2-column content call out text. It's just done it. It's just done it pretty flawlessly. How long would that have taken you to go do every one of those? Remember, you've got to create a new class for every single one. Then you got to copy the styles from the old to the new. Then you got to go in and delete all the old ones. That's, for a frame this size, that's 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you're quick. That's if you're quick. I think that's, put a timer on, 20, 30 minutes. I just auto BIM that in like that. Okay, so now it's mine. It's called 2-column content. Let's see if we can make it dark. So let's just go, maybe you got a dark themed website. What do you want to do here? Let's go with neutral, all right? And then let's just see what typography gets us. See how much of this gets inherited. And it looks like the vast majority gets inherited. Let me check inner left. Yep, that's just got text in it. And then this one right here, we can go with typography and go, that should probably stay dark if I had to imagine. Okay, I'm not using real colors on this website. And then the only thing here is our intro, which remember I said earlier, our intro is used in light sections and in dark sections. So how would I handle this? Well, in a lot of ways, I would just handle this sometimes with a utility class where I can go text white and bang, like I'm done, right? It's gonna inherit that because it's a one-off change I'm making. I obviously don't wanna make this to the class because it's not gonna help me. Like if I make it work at the class level here, it's gonna not work in on the sections where it's on a light background. It's just not gonna work, right? Now you could have a modifier. So you could say, let me take this off of here. All right, I think, what is it doing now? Is it inheriting anything now? I think it's inheriting from the background back here. Okay, so I can have FR intro alpha and I can have FR intro alpha dark, okay? Now you wanna get your logic straight. Sometimes when someone says a dark version, it's like, we're gonna have light text, okay? Because it's like for when it's on dark, this is the style for when it's on dark. Some people say FR intro alpha dark because it's all dark text in there. You got to figure out that logic on your own. I've seen it go both ways, and I know it's confusing. Just Pick a logic and stick with the logic, right? I'm gonna say that this is when it's on dark, all right? So I want this to be light when it's on dark. Now, I actually can't do it from here. We're gonna do it from this class, FR intro alpha. Why? Because we need to use the dynamic root selector, and we need to select the dark variation from here, because the only way we can reference this is through here. So we're gonna say root dark, and then we want root and heading. So we're gonna do the root and the heading, and we can do a quick border check. Okay, see, I'm selecting that heading, even though I'm selecting the dark variant. Why? Because the dark variant is present here. If I remove that, it will not select that anymore. And now I can say, all right, so when this dark class is present, we're gonna go color var white. Okay? And you actually don't even, just to remind everybody, you don't have to write the vars here either. You can just go white like that, because automatic CSS is gonna auto wrap that in a var. And now let's go see on a different page. What's beeping? Let's go, actually, we'll just go down here. Let's add another section. And this is clearly a light section, right? So let's duplicate this intro alpha and let's drag it down here into this other section. All right, and come down. And now we're gonna remove that dark class. So see, in light sections, it's gonna look like this. And then if I ever add it to a dark section, I can put the dark modifier on there, and it's gonna style it according to when it's on dark. And now I kind of have two versions in one without having two frames. This is typically how I handle things. And really, it's the dynamic root selector that kind of opened the door to all of this, because this really wasn't possible before. And this is the other thing when you ask a question like, what's stopping you from having frames and build areas or something? Well, I mean, this is one of the questions I look, do they have a dynamic root selector? Because we do so much with the dynamic root selector. If they don't have a dynamic root selector, that's a big hurdle to like creating frames for another builder. So just another kind of random thought. But look how easy it was to create a dark version of that. And you can do the same thing with the 2-column content. So you can have a 2-column content dark, you can have a 2-column content by itself. If your main website is like a light base, then just say 2-column content is for on light base. And then when it's on dark, we have a dark modifier that modifies it to like this. And then we just have what effectively amounts to a switch. And we can use that little modifier class to switch it back and forth. That's using the modifier class. Now there's another way to do it, okay? So let's take that off. I showed you using a utility class. We saw that. There's another way. You can also, and there's really not much wrong with this. There's one thing wrong with it, but not much. I could come down here. Nothing is stopping me from just going to ID level and going typography, and except for the fact that that's not inheriting. Okay, so you would have to do it on the actual heading. But the ID of this heading, the unique version of this one heading right here, you could go white at the ID level. And you'd be like, Kevin, that's, styling at the ID level, that's kind of yucky. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's a one-off thing, pretty much. So what's the disadvantage to that? The disadvantage to that is you're gonna do that same instruction over and over and over and over again. And every time you do it, it's gonna put another entry in the style sheet. So it's like this heading color white, this heading color white, this heading color white, versus if you use a utility class like text white, same effect. There's only one line that says this, whatever text here, it has this class is gonna be white, one entry in the style sheet. You can use it a million times. It's one instruction in the style sheet. So this is much more efficient from a CSS standpoint. Just random pros and cons. What did I say and what do I say all the time? There's a gazillion ways to skin the cats, okay? So I feel the need to cover like more than one. You gotta kind of pick the thing that matches you the most. But your one-off options for styling frames are utility classes or ID styling or modifiers. So three main options there. All right, let me hop back to chat for a minute and just see what people are saying, because I can't see them when I see the questions. If you just came in recently, we're using a new system, #Q. That allows me to search for the questions. So if you didn't put a hashtag, I cannot find it. All right, let me go up here and just check the chat. Okay. If you rename via class manager, it will still be associated to the old classes. Yes, yes. Because in Bricks, this is very pivotal information, and we try to explain this everywhere, but very pivotal information. Bricks uses an ID inside of classes, not like a CSS ID, more like think JavaScript ID, right? Like a unique identifier for every class, so that you can change the name without disrupting where the styles are attached to, right? So the styles are actually attached to an ID, and then the class name is just a visual thing. That's why you can freely change it. The problem is, if you rename it, it keeps the unique ID, and thus from a library like Frames or any third-party library, when you import it again, even if you've changed the name, it's gonna import it with your new name, even though it's coming from the source library. Because when Bricks tries to add it, it realizes, oh, that ID already exists, and that ID is mapped to this name, so we gotta make sure we show that new name when we import this thing. That's how it works. So the only way to get a unique copy is to delete the class, which effectively deletes that unique ID, create a new class, which creates a new ID behind that class label, and now you have a unique version of that thing. Now, what they could do to improve this, because trust me, it could be improved, okay? They can just make a feature that basically like duplicates to a unique ID, just like natively allow that to happen when you rename. Like you could have a rename and keep the existing ID, or rename and create a new ID. And then we don't have the hassle of delete or create new, delete old, copy styles, all that dance does not have to happen anymore. Okay, just checking on chat here. A lot of people do want to see the Figma process. Haven't let a client touch a menu in 8 years. Yeah, I mean, dude, life is so much better when your clients are not messing with the website. It's better for them, okay? This is a situation where you got to protect Bev from herself and protect the company from Bev, okay? Dynamic components are going to change the game, absolutely. How do we get frames for Figma? It'll be available again very, very, very soon. Okay, change orders for the win. Hey, Justin, like little call back to our end of the year, our 2023 end of the year inner circle private. What was that? Just a private office hours, I think we called it, right? And that was the theme of office. This is why you need to be in the inner circle. The theme of the 2023 end of year office hours was stop doing broke people shit. And doing free wireframes for people. There's a whole laundry list I gave of this is just broke people shit. Stop doing broke people shit, and your year will go way better. And we just had a people were so fired up after that, and I bet they've carried that. Hopefully, they've carried that energy right into 2024. Okay. Really wish that Thomas from Bricks wouldn't have put Bricks components on the back burner. Hopefully, did he say that? I was a little late to the live stream. I didn't see the first 15 minutes. So did he say that's on the back burner? Okay. Give me some more information on that. This is the first time I'm hearing this. Okay, awesome tutorial. PB101 L08 dry. The label got in the way. Dry development with classes and global styling. Yes, that is pivotal. Pivotal. AT says he'll be watching the Processes Everything Masterclass right after this. Absolutely. Game changer. And I'm not, literally, it's one of those things that it's almost like, that should be like, it should be a premium thing. But it was too important. Like I wanted too many people, and I'm actually going to re-record it because it was a live stream. And YouTube treats live streams terribly. It archives them in the lives area. Nobody ever finds it again. So I'm gonna re-record it as a normal video. Just put it out. It's a video like every agency owner / freelancer must watch. Required viewing. You just if you don't watch it, you're at a tremendous disadvantage. Okay, let's see. What changes do I need to make to use content section hotel as a hero section? Okay, good. This is a good question. Oh, let me get this one out of the way too. All right, content section hotel. So we'll do content section. There's content section hotel. Let's go ahead and insert. Okay. So the only change you need to make is go H2 to H1. And you're gonna want enough images here. This is ideally supposed to be looped. When I use this frame, I loop these. We're gonna need to put some more media wrappers in here because you need enough to stretch to the top, however tall this section is. So if I save now and go to the front end, there we go. Now, I personally think this is too much content for it. Well, first of all, that headline's too much, right? This is the headline. All right, let's save. Let's go back. Let's get rid of this one. Refresh. Okay. So there we go, right there. I don't know that, I guess maybe, yeah, you could justify having these talking points in the hero. That's fine. Decide here whether you want that to be a link or a button. Like if I want that to be a button, let's come in here, drop in a button. Now it's a button. Drop a little button action on there, save, go back, refresh. If you want that button to be at the bottom below the talking points, this is the value of grouping associated content. You see how those talking points are already grouped together for you? Makes it easy to move them. You don't have to go like one at a time kind of thing. That's a hero right there. Done. Bing, bang, boom. Go in and drop. Remember I said I like to loop these? So that would just require getting rid of all these. There's your media wrapper. Look, it's already in a wrapper, which means it's loopable. See, if we had used just images with no wrappers, no, can't query loop that. But, we use the noggin. I'm not as dumb as I look. I've been saying that more. Okay, so posts, that one always confuses me because I always go like, no, I want to query media. And it's like, no, that's technically a post. So you do media from here, and then we're gonna go select terms. We're gonna go to placeholders in our folder, and then we're gonna go to image. We're gonna get rid of the placeholder. We're gonna go here and post ID. Oh, look at that. Automatically generated hero section for you with like cool little imagery here. Easy as that. Now, the only thing I like the question because if you're gonna use some of these frames, number one point that was good about this question, it shows you that, hey, I just took a content frame. It didn't say hero on it. It said content. Am I allowed to use that as a hero? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. But if you do use it as a hero, what do we know about hero headings? That needs to be your H1. So it's because it's a content section, it's gonna come with an H2 by default out of the box. You gotta know, oh, I'm using this as a hero, I gotta make that change to H1. That's an adjustment the user has to make, okay? But look, the categories are just like, cause we have to categorize them. But if you can take a look at a layout and be like, no, that would actually be really good used over here for this thing, by all means, be our guest. Like go use it for whatever you want to use it for. Just make the necessary adjustments, you're good to go. But I mean, look, how far off are we from having like a finished hero? Drop some content in here, maybe a different background color in here. I mean, this is, it doesn't really get any easier. This is really, and just think about that frame for 1 second. I mean, really, if you just had to guess, like how long would that take you to build? I even thought about like putting the time on each frame just somewhere, maybe in the documentation. Like, hey, we slaved over this one for 47 minutes so that you don't have to, right? Some of these are like, some of them go 2 hours, like 3 hours. And like, then we pop that in a library and you go click add. Oh my gosh, like the time saved is tremendous. Okay, let's get that out of there. Let's see. I just bought ACSS this week, so I'm very new and I'm looking at purchasing frames. I would like to know how would you use frames with CPT to create a query loop. So I just showed there on, good question, Brian, just showed there. Let me see if this has any CPTs in it. We could do a quick little demonstration. So I have vehicles. Vehicle CPT, this was for class schedule, I think. So how many vehicles do we have in here? Okay, got some vehicles. So let's go with frame, and maybe we'll do something in the features category. Okay, we want like a grid of these vehicles, right? You could do something simple, like standard. Use something with some overlays, your grid echo, hotels, a lot of different options. Here's feature grid echo here. Let's just go something, just so you can see, something basic. Won't go too crazy out of the box. Actually, maybe we'll go something a little less basic. This feature section Victor's been making the rounds a lot. This one I know I've absolutely messed with on here. I actually say 32 pixels. Who does that? That's when you know what I did with this frame? Because somebody requested, actually I promised when I did the video, I promised I would release this because this was the whole build this in Gutenberg situation where I built this frame in Gutenberg. And I promised that I would give a non-ACSS compatible version. And that's exactly what you're looking at right now. That's why that's at 32 pixels instead of variables and such. Let's see if I can fix this up real quick. So let's go back to grid gap. Let's do grid, I think it was a 4 by default. Yeah, something like that. And let's just do grid auto 4 probably, because I don't want to have to deal with breakpoints. Okay, pretty much back to normal. All right, let's go typography. Let's go white. Okay. And then, yeah, are these H3s or H2s? They're H3s. Okay, good. So we're gonna query loop this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in, we don't have a label really, we can make one if we wanted to, but I'm not gonna go that far with it. But anytime you wanna query loop with a frame, you're gonna remove all instances except for one of them. This is gonna be like your master card for the loop. I'm not gonna worry about auto BIM and all that for this. We're just gonna say use query loop. And then I'm just gonna come in here and say, we're gonna query vehicles. And it's pretty much gonna show you the number that it's gonna give you in your output. And of course you can come in here and decide whether you're gonna ascend, descend, all that. That's all just standard query loop stuff. We're gonna come in here and say post title. And then I'm gonna jump into the media wrapper and find the media back there, delete the static media and just come in here. And I'm just gonna assume that these are all featured images. And there you go. So we got our BMW in there, our Porsche in here, our little short description goes there. Let's view this on the front end. Okay, and just for OCD purposes, I'll just make that say our vehicles. Okay, so there's our vehicles. Look, Mercedes, Lambo, BMW, Porsche, hover. Oh. Okay, now you would have to go in and put in some custom fields. Like I didn't even look here, like vehicles, all vehicles, Mercedes. Okay, overpriced German, hey, they do have vehicle descriptions. Look at that. I remember doing that on that video. Very hard to remember these days. What's been done on a video, what hasn't been done on it. My head is just absolutely spinning half the time. So that is right here under meta description. Get rid of the static one. Search for description. There's ACF vehicle description. Save, refresh. Look, there's all the descriptions right there. So it's very easy. Now, if you go to the documentation, getframes.io/frames, this is called Victor, right? So we're gonna do find a frame, find Victor for me. There's Victor. I open up Victor, okay? I'm gonna come down here. It is gonna tell you whether a frame is query loop compatible or not. And just as a principle, if we look at a frame when we're building it and we go, if there is the slightest chance that somebody would want to query loop this, we make it query loop compatible. We do what it takes to make it query loop compatible, just as a general rule. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't seem like it would even be query loop compatible, that it actually kind of is. But it'll mark it on here. So you'll see all the variables on here. Hey, this frame uses the clickable parent technique, like, you know. That's the other thing you get with frames is nobody's, come on. There's no design sets that are documenting like this. And even I feel like most frames we haven't done enough for the documentation. But guess what? Any documentation is better than 99.9% of other sets out there. on top of everything else that you get with frames. I mean, there's FAQs on some of these frames, like how do I do X, Y, Z, just based on what people ask typically. Okay, I think that question is answered. All right, great having any players in your corner for all of WP Tuts and Adam pricing of WP card. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That office hours call out is my anthem for the year. Yes. Don't repeat yourself. Dry, dry, dry. What time is it? 2:30. Okay, we're still good. We got 30 minutes. We got to wrap it up. 30 minutes. Is there a training somewhere that shows how to do the query looping of a custom field for team members? You mention it often, but not entirely sure I've seen how to do it. Exactly like we just did it right there. You're just pulling from a team member CPT and you're good to go. Okay. Oh, he mentioned that it's been on the back burner since releasing that video about components in September 2023 and was focused on building the new Bricks website, I believe. Well, hopefully that comes off the back burner like ASAP. Like that's a lot is hinging on that. I'm confused on the feature card uniform on the order list of the image and text. When I try to wrap the feature card uniform into another block, it will change the order. I'm confused on feature card uniform. Okay. Delete. Feature card uniform. Okay. Feature section uniform probably has all of them. All right. And then this one, like I said, I'll just remind everybody, we're on a 2.8 dev branch, which has the FR classes not present. So I got to come in here and put these colors on myself for right now. Feature card. Oh, that's typography. That's not what we want. We want the background. Okay, so yeah, say FRBG dark is on there, but in this test branch, it does not exist as a utility. So we're gonna save there. All right, so there's the frame, right? And you want to, here's that intro alpha. See what when I said changing it to white at the class level is not gonna help because it's gonna make it not work on everywhere else. That's a perfect example of that. So you're saying, when I try to wrap the feature card uniform into another block, it will change the order. You mean into a different grid? I mean, that's very possible because let's put another container in here. Okay, let's drop. Let me see in the order of the DOM is content and then media. So if you drop this into this container down here, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, that looks the same. Let's drop the second one into that container. Well, let's delete this one. Okay. I don't know, I'm not breaking it. It has not broken yet. So I'm still not sure what you're asking exactly. Still works. I mean, we could just talk about the order of it. So we like the content to come first in the DOM, right? So if we view this on the front end. Okay. So here's the card right here, and we open that up. We see the content first, which brings our heading first in the DOM, something we look for. That puts the media last, right? Then we use order to visually switch the order. And then in feature grid uniform, let me get rid of that whole frame. Feature uniform, feature section uniform. This grid wrapper right here auto flip-flops them. That's how you can add, oops, didn't want to drag that. That's how you can add a gazillion of them and never have to worry about the order. It just automatically, Bricks is generating all those 1,000 copies I just made. See how it auto staggers them still? And what's good is like, here's a unique one. Which one is this? This one? Okay, so we'll just say unique. So technically, theoretically, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's an oddly positioned one. So I'm going to position it in 2, which is an even position. I mean, if you did this without auto flip-flopping, you'd be in a world of hurt right now. I mean, you'd have to go to manually adjust every single one that comes after that card you just moved and make it go the other direction. But you don't have to do that because we've already thought about that, right? It just automatically flip-flops them. I don't know. I wasn't able to break this one. So if you're doing something different that's breaking it, let me know. But that's how that works. Hey, Kevin, how was 2023 from an overall perspective regarding your agency frames and ACSS? Are you happy with the development of projects and how things are going? Greetings from Germany. Yeah, agency, we scaled down dramatically to divert resources to ACSS and Frames, and ACSS and Frames both grew dramatically. I keep an agency around at this point because I want to maintain a foot in that world, and because I still produce content in that world. I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, I haven't done agency stuff in a few years, but I'm still going to give you my theories about agency life. I still need an actual foot in that camp in order to keep producing accurate content for it, right? So that's mainly why, I don't have to have my agency. I do like, some client work from time to time, but I'm at the point now where we turn down 98% of the client work. And then every now and again, some project will come along where I'm like, damn, that's an interesting sounding project. Like that sounds like it'd be fun to work on. Then I'll take that. But everything else pretty much is just a no. And ACSS frames, because I've got so many etch, and I already have too much to do. The inner circle, and so I just go back to my priorities. What are my priorities? My priorities are inner circle, automatic CSS, and then with automatic CSS frames. I gotta rotate between those three things with 90% of my time, energy, and attention. And in order to keep ACSS frames, inner circle, all of that going, content. Like that, and where does that, is that fourth? No, I don't know. It's somewhere in the, there's gotta be a balance, right? But I gotta produce a tremendous amount of content for people on YouTube, for groups, for everything, right? So agency, there's not much time for agency stuff in there. And what we do in the agency, I do wireframing still, discovery, and then my team does UI, my team does dev, my team does launch, my team does management, my team does all that stuff. So I'm not really required all that much. But 2023 was as good as it could. I mean, if it went any better, I just feel bad, I feel greedy or something. I don't know. I'm just content. I'm content with it. Of course, I would like to just, dominate the entire, it just takes time. It takes time. I have to be patient with myself. Because there are mornings where I wake up and I'm like, you're not doing enough. Yeah, you could do better. You could do better. Sometimes that's a bad, it's like you're not nice to yourself at some point if you do that too much, right? At some point you got to be happy with what you've done. Not too happy with what you've done, but happy with what you've done. All right, I'm just rambling. Let's go on to the next question. Can we get a video of you doing a speed run building a website with frames and ACSS? That will be in the, I don't know. What would you call a speed run? Because to me, it's you got to put thought into it. You've got to put attention into it. Yeah. Attention and intention, both have to go into it. And I've always said, it's not about racing to the finish line. Because what most people in web design, when they're racing, you know what they do? They cut corners. And it's almost like I view it the same way I view my 6-year-old playing softball. If she didn't have to touch the bases, she'd be halfway to first and just cut across the fucking mound. And then just from there right back home. I mean, if there were no standards, that's what she would do. And so I've got to sit her aside and explain to her and say, honey, you got to actually touch those bases or you're out. They don't count this like cut all the corners thing. They don't count that. We all have to touch the bases. And then I see web design people and they're like, oh, just fucking style everything at the ID level. You don't have to worry about accessibility and best practices. And I kind of look at them like I look at my 6-year-old. I'm like, well, hold on. We do have some bases we have to touch here. That copy does matter, okay? That design does matter. The UX does matter, all right? It's not all a race. It's not, oh my God, how can I get the first theme forest template? Let me just get a UI that somebody else did. Let me just plop it in. Let me just throw content in there. Let me just hit publish. Oh, look at that. I did it in 20 minutes. And what did you actually do? You didn't touch any of the bases. None of the stuff that matters got checked, okay? So you're not actually doing like professional work in this industry. I don't know why we have to have that conversation with other adults, but apparently we do. So what we look for is speed in doing things right. Hey, I tell my 6-year-old, hey, if you can run faster, right, that would be fantastic, right? Touch all the bases. But if you can somehow get your legs moving faster, that is a legitimate improvement, right? That's what Frames does for you. You're still touching all the bases, but your legs are somehow moving faster, right? A lot faster. And that's okay. That kind of speed we like. Now, in some ways, you got to slow down a little bit to do things better. Like if you're going to assign BIM classes to everything, that's not racing. Like, we got to think of the name. We got to do the applying that. Now, auto BIM, oh my God, suddenly our legs are moving faster, okay? But we're checking the right boxes. We're hitting all the bases. So you just have to make sure that when you're trying to race, which I like racing, I like working fast, you just have to make sure you touch all the bases. And we don't want to get in the position where we're cutting corners and just cheating and doing the client a disservice, right? I mean, wait, how much, like to me, and this goes into pricing too. You got to think about this in yourself. Some people have higher standards than other people. And like when I'm writing copy, I have to charge a lot to write copy because I spend a lot of time on it. And maybe that's just because maybe I could get better and my brain could work faster or something, or I could just come out of the gate with better ideas. I don't know. If that's you, if you're just a natural at like everything I write, I've got a golden pen, everything I write, first draft is just fucking amazing. I don't know. Maybe at that point you should charge even more. I don't know. But we got to be careful with this racing idea because that's really what all these page builders say. Oh, you can do it so much faster. Let's do a side-by-side comparison. But what's the measuring stick? This watch right here can't be the only measuring stick. There's way more involved than this in building a professional website that actually does the job that our clients want it to do. And that I'm just constantly harping on that over and over and over again. And for some reason, it's like, I don't know why the industry isn't in agreement with that, but now we're ranting again. See? Okay, let's do some last questions. Last two. Using Hero India, sticky header, and auto header, overlay offset, what is the best practice way of moving the image down so that the top of the image is not hidden by the header? Okay. Hero India. Okay. Let's get these taken care of real quick. Okay, I got to read again. I got to read 5 times because I'm dyslexic. So, auto header. Oh, wait. Oh, and, oh gosh. Okay. Now, man, you're putting me to work. Okay, well, now we got to go over here and we got to go to bricks templates and we got to go to add new and we got to go to header and we got to publish. I mean, this is good because we get to see what it's like. Do a little header situation. We'll just keep it nice and simple. Little header alpha here. We'll go into template settings, conditions. We got to show this everywhere, the entire website. We're going to save that. Excellent. Then we're going to go into, actually, did I assign it as a header yet? Nope. Got to go header here. I was like, where are my controls for header, first of all? All right, so now we go back in and we go to template settings, and now suddenly we have some header options. Let's make it a sticky header. And sometimes I do this manually because I have trouble with Brix's controls sometimes. Sticky on scroll, yes, we want it to be sticky on scroll. I actually don't think we need that. Save, let's go just check the front end real quick. Okay, maybe I need to check it on this page. Yeah, okay, so that's doing the job. We need to give it a background color. So let's come in here to header alpha, background. Let's go with just white, I suppose. Okay, back to here, there's white. I need to add more content to this page now. So we're just gonna add a bunch of sections just to be able to scroll. Now I can scroll, that's a sticky header. Okay, fantastic. And let's go into automatic CSS, typography. Actually, this is an options, additional styling, header styling. There we go, offset page content automatically. Okay, let's save. Anytime you have a sticky header like that, I would highly recommend you turn this on. And then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to open your header heights styling because we don't know the height of your header, right? So you're gonna come in here, and this is all gonna get easier in 3.0, by the way. When I hover that, it tells me the height right there is 98.57 pixels. So we're gonna go with like 99. You can round, it's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. So we're gonna go into here and say my header height is 99 pixels. And I would wanna do this at every breakpoint. Now keep in mind, your header height may change at various breakpoints. So you're gonna wanna go check it at each breakpoint that you have active. But more or less, that's what you do, okay? And now it's offsetting. So the header was a minute ago taking up space inside of this section, and we don't want it to. We want to see the entire section. So that offset, that automatic offset automatically takes care of that for you. Now, what's the rest of your question? So we've gotten to our starting point for this. By the way, this gives you a glimpse into, you know, what our support team has to do, right? When people put in support requests for this frame's not working, and then it's always like, and what I'm doing is this query loop is querying this things and that thing. And it's like, oh my God, we've got to like recreate all this to try to figure out what's happening. That's the life. That's the life. That's why you guys pay the big bucks. Stuff you don't see. Okay, so auto header overlay offset. What is the best practice way of moving the image down so that the top of the image is not hidden by the header? Well, I think I just answered your question, actually. So it's that automatic header height offset. I think that's what you're probably worried about, is your image was being cut off on the top. And now it no longer is because we're offsetting that header. Let's go ahead and turn that setting off and see visually what we get. Save changes. Okay, let me open another, is this another copy of that? It is. This is with header height offset, and this is without header height offset. So see how we're not eating up the section anymore with our header? So it's automatically offsetting that content. That should fix your problem right there. So the two steps are additional styling, offset page content automatically, and then make sure your header heights are set in these inputs. And just, again, to reiterate, this is only a feature of automatic CSS. This does not exist in any other tool or framework or anything else. This is a perfect example of us recognizing common problems and going, that should have a solution. And that is our solution right there. So if that does not, for some reason, fix your issue, please let me know and we can investigate what might be going on. Okay, in section Romeo, when on mobile, how are we doing on time? 10 minutes. When on mobile, there is a gap between the cards, but the color of the gap is white, but a section background color doesn't show up. Okay, section Romeo. All right, let's get out of the header template. Let's get out of here. Let's close these. Stay a little bit organized. Section Romeo, I'm just gonna put in Romeo. You're talking about these. You're talking about Hero Romeo, or are you talking about Feature Romeo? You didn't specify, you just said Section Romeo. Let's go. I assume you're talking about this one, but I'm not sure because this is not supposed to have a gap between the cards. So feature section Romeo. Let's query these so we can actually have some content in them. Let's just do the vehicles again. So we'll do vehicles and this card heading, first this vertical heading. Okay, post title. Then there's another heading right here, the real heading. Let's post title these. Let's grab that media. Let's get rid of that. Let's featured image that. And let's save. And let's go back to the front end. Oh my gosh, beautiful. It's just beautiful. Oh, there's a description in there too. Let's get this lead, bang, bang, description, vehicle description, save, back to the front. Woo, that's just nice. We can even say, you know what? That's too many cars. That's just too, we don't want that many cars in the loop. All right, let's go 4, save, refresh. Now we got 4 cars in the loop. Guys, it doesn't get any easier. How long would it take you to build this? Seriously, how long would it take you to build this? By the way, it's accessible. Look, I'm keyboard navigating that. Keyboard navigating that. Okay. Question. So what was it? There's a gap between the cards. I think I might know what's happening here. So on spacing, no, I have the auto spacing on too, and it's not auto spacing those. Feature card Romeo, feature Romeo. If you put a gap in this section, which is not there by default, I don't even think it's designed for a gap. I don't think it can have a gap because of the effect. It's not, I don't think it's allowed to have a gap. Is this the section you were talking about? Oh, when you go to the breakpoints. Okay, so there's that breakpoint. That's fine. And it switches out of the accordion now into normal cards. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So feature Romeo class, we've got a grid gap creating that. And you're saying that a background color does not show through. Okay, so let's go to feature section Romeo and let's go background of ultra dark. That's showing through right there. I'm gonna select feature Romeo right here and do a background. That's showing through. What I would maybe guess is that you've put like a white background color on Romeo, feature Romeo right here, or potentially even on that grid, probably not on the grid. And then when you go to section, you're trying to change it and you're gonna notice that, uh-oh, that's not good, right? But that's because there's a background color set here, which we actually don't want, right? It's something involved because it's out of the box. You can see that it's working. It's something in that you've probably done with your attempts to style it or to customize it. And maybe there's an erroneous background color floating around somewhere. Now, the good news is you can go right into the ACSS community, right? This is exactly what this is for. And you could say feature section Romeo and, you know, type your issue, give us a link to your site, even better, because then we can go inspect or help you inspect, and we can tell you exactly what's going wrong. And you'll get answers literally within like, you know, I don't know, it feels like 10, 15 minutes, you'll have answers. Because we have an awesome community like that. People in our community are just fantastic. Can you create more videos about recreating web pages with some fancy UI using ACSS frames and maybe also, yeah, I would go to the ACSS channel. I just did a long series on Zendesk.com rebuilding their fancy homepage with ACSS. I didn't use frames, but I used ACSS because people wanted to see it with just ACSS. See, some people are like, I want to see it with just ACSS. Some people are like, I want to see it with just ACSS and frames. And then some people are like, I want to see it with none of that. I want to see it with vanilla bricks. So, man, it's hard to strike a balance. Can you create more videos based on ACSS Frames web accessibility standards? Yes, we will definitely do more accessibility related stuff. Is there a best way to handle transparent, sticky scrolling with shrink header, but also hide or disable this on mobile breakpoints? That's not a frame-specific question, but we can potentially do that as a tutorial. Yes, that's pretty involved. We're not going to get that done in the next, in our last 5 minutes. But that's a good concept for a video in general. So it would be a sticky header that also shrinks when you scroll, that you can also toggle to not sticky on certain pages. That might be a good concept for a video. Okay. I've achieved the border glow effect on feature section card Charlie. Are you saying how to achieve a glow effect? Do you plan to add more header frames with mega menus, e-commerce, header layouts, and more? Yes, yes. The reason why there are not more is because as soon as ACSS 3.0 is released, we are going to be working on 2 things. Number 1 is Etch, which nobody knows what that is yet. And then 2 is the header builder component in frames. So we are going to build our own mega menu builder, accessible mega menu builder, and standard menu. It's going to be good for standard menus too. We're going to build our own component for that. And then once we build our own component for that, then we're going to go lights out. We're going to go crazy with the header frames. So you're going to have mega menus coming out your ears, okay? And standard ones too, and centered, and all the hard stuff. Yeah. And we will continue to fill the whole header side of, but right now it's like, oh man, we're gonna build a bunch of headers with like somebody else's header component thing, which we don't like the bricks one. It is what it is. So that's why there aren't more yet. But yes, there will be more coming. What do you suggest for e-commerce websites, which I'm currently avoiding, by the way? AT, the second part of that was, that's all you need to know. I avoid e-commerce like the plague. Because we're not, I mean, I understand it. I understand it's like everybody wants the open source nature of WordPress, but we're not using a tool that's built for e-commerce. Let's just all be honest here. Like WooCommerce is an absolute, it is like the trash can with the fire, with it's bad. I just avoid it at all costs. It sucks, but thankfully, we have somebody on the team, Tobias, and he dabbles in the Woo, and so he is in charge of our WooCommerce frames. And so even though I hate it, you guys still get WooCommerce frames. But I personally avoid it. And if somebody's asking me for advice in terms of like agency life, I will say this. I won't say avoid e-commerce. If you want to live in that world, that's fine. But live in that world. That should be the only world you live in. Don't like, oh, I do some service-based businesses and sometimes e-commerce. They are wildly different universes. And so that is when people talk about picking a niche, you don't have to pick a niche in terms of like, I do nail salons. No, you don't have to go that far. But definitely either be in the service business camp or be in the e-com camp. Don't try to live in both those camps. That is an absolute nightmare waiting to happen. No scaling possible there. No, just pick one, master it, live in it, and that's your thing. Okay. What are your thoughts on the interview with Thomas? This will be our last question to close out. I think we did enough frames. We're out of time. My thoughts are I want to get Thomas on Geary.co on that YouTube channel because I have a lot of things that I want to ask that were not asked in that interview. And I think it would be a really fun conversation. I think it would be a lively conversation, an entertaining conversation. I just want to get him, I want him to come on for an interview. And we'll see if he says yes. The invitation has been sent. So it's just a matter of him saying, okay, and us getting on the calendar. But I like the fact that he did one. I like the fact that Paul had him on. Paul's got a big platform. And so what that did for us is it got bricks immediately in front of lots and lots. Well, I mean, Paul's been doing other bricks tutorials, right? So it's not like his audience didn't know bricks, but they got a chance to meet the founder, which nobody's really had an opportunity to do yet. Thomas doesn't really make the rounds. He doesn't really do interviews and stuff like that. He's very private. So that I think that did a lot for bricks in general, which is good for all of us, really. Bricks is having phenomenal growth. Bricks is having phenomenal growth, and I'm just excited to see it. And I think that it stands a chance, out of all of the page builders right now, it stands the biggest chance of becoming an Elementor type thing. That ecosystem is ginormous. Don't get me wrong. Okay. The gap couldn't be bigger, really, between Elementor and like bricks, right? But if there's any builder that really has a chance at getting up there to some capacity with the amount of competition that's available right now, bricks is leading the charge. I think it's the most accessible to the most amount of people. Like when we're talking about just general audience, it's to me, it's very user friendly. Like you guys have seen with PB 101 that if you just teach some people like the base, even if they're brand new, you just show them some of the ropes and the principles and best practices. Do you know how many messages I get from people who watch Page Building 101 and either switched from Elementor or switched from Divi, like after watching that, and then, or just were getting started and hadn't even picked a builder yet and immediately went to bricks. And then they're emailing me because they're like, this is just fantastic. I love the builder. I feel so confident in it. Like I know exactly what to do. All it takes is like a little bit of education. Bricks it's not hard to use. If you know what you're doing, it's very easy. The workflow is very fast. It has phenomenal features that other page builders don't have. It can take off, man. It can absolutely take off. Like what it's accomplished so far is impressive and fantastic. This is the warm-up phase. This is the warm-up phase. It can go way higher from here. So I'm excited to see that happen, and I'm excited to help make that happen. I'm doing my absolute best because I feel like the more people that do switch to bricks from like an Elementor, from a Divi, and do that with best practices, it's better for that person and it's better for their clients. Everybody's winning. The whole industry is winning when that happens. We don't need more bad Elementor sites. We don't need more bad Divi sites. we need more good brick sites. And then clients are happier in general. Our work is worth more in general. The whole industry is elevated when individual agencies and individual freelancers are elevated. So yeah. Here's what you guys can do. Tell Thomas. Now, let's be very careful about this, okay? Don't go tag Thomas in the Facebook group, okay? He's got enough shit to worry about. But if you're having an interaction with Thomas already, maybe you sent in a support thing, maybe you did whatever, maybe Thomas answered a question in email or something like that. Give him a little nod, hey, you should go on and do an interview with Kevin. Let's get him on the channel because I think it's really good for bricks. I think people want to see the creators of these tools. That's why I put myself out there so much. I think people want to know how that person thinks and what they're focused on and what they are planning for the future and how the philosophy that they build their tool with, right? Do they actually care about me as the user? Do they actually care about my clients, the people I'm serving? Or do they only care about themselves? Or do they only care about their fancy dev skills or whatever it is, right? I said the other day, there's so many page builders and tools are built by people who don't even build websites. That's crazy to me, which is fine, but you've got to at least show tremendous interest in that world because that's the world that your customers are living in and day out. So like, it's an advantage that I use ACSS and Frames in legit work every single day. That's not true of every design set and framework. And if you're using a builder where maybe they did client work 10 years ago and they're building features based on their experience 10 years ago, that's not relevant to now. And so how do we know like that? The only way that we know Thomas actually is paying attention to that stuff and cares about that stuff is if he gets on an interview and says it and talks about, all sorts of stuff that we care about. We need more of that. So it's a benefit to everybody. Let's try to get him on. So that's how I think about it. All right, I gotta go get some lunch. You're a bit too wild, and don't forget English is not his first language. That's the thing, though. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm really not. I did like Paul's like, every time somebody references me, there has to be they feel like there has to be all these disclaimers or something. This might be a controversial thing to say. This might be, might not like his personality. Where have I, like, can people get out the doll and show me where I've hurt them? Like, please. Literally, I'm talking about best practices. I'm just not a political, like, bullshitter. And yeah, people will avoid interviews thinking that like, hey, this guy is not gonna like tee up softballs for me like he does for a 6-year-old daughter. He might ask me a tough question at some point. He might press me on something at some point. But that's like, honestly, do you guys love, why do I not like political debates? So do I ever turn on like a Republican debate or a Democrat debate or whatever? No, fucking never. Why? Because I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to stand at a podium and they're going to bullshit you for an hour. And then the people asking the questions are going to ask the dumbest questions that nobody really cares about. And they get a minute, they get 90 seconds to answer it. This is just a loser format. A loser. When somebody goes on Rogan and he talks to them for 3 hours and they're drinking and half of them are high, that's what I want to listen to. Now we're talking about some real shit. Now I know exactly what this person thinks, right? I try to give you that when I turn on the camera, that's it. Everybody wants to, do you think I'd ever fucking read a teleprompter? No, I think I know. Most people just want, hey, can you just be authentic? Like, take the script down, okay? Just tell us what you actually think. I think that's the best way to go. So that's what I do. And I think that's really ultimately, why do you guys think Rogan is like so big? Because people go, it's unfiltered. And they forget you could tell, after like 30 minutes, they forgot the camera's rolling. They forgot they're on a podcast being listened to by millions and millions of people. And you start to hear what they actually think. And Rogan presses them on something. Rogan will ask some questions, right? This is what needs to happen. Like all this like buttoned up political, like let's make sure nobody gets their feelings hurt. Let's make sure everybody's friends at the end of the day. We all sing Kumbaya. I don't know. Where's there's not value, there's no entertainment, that's not moving anybody. Can we all disagree? Like things are moving forwards, right? There's people in Gutenberg land listening to what I say when I put out videos that have some criticism in it, right? That is causing positive change. There are features in bricks that did not exist until somebody said they needed to, right? It creates positive change and positive momentum. There are people who used to charge $1,500 for a website who are now emailing me, telling me about the last project they landed at $15,000. Okay, this doesn't come from buttoned up, like political, like let's just not tell people the facts. Let's just not tell people the truth. Let's just make sure our number one priority is that everybody likes what they hear. That's my number one priority. No, that's a failed strategy. Plus, I can't do it. I would just have to be fake at all times, and I can't keep track of fakeness. Like then I go over here to you know, a word camp and you run into me and it's like, well, that's not the guy I saw on the camera. Like, I'm not a fucking double agent, okay? Like, I'm just me. Turn on the camera, talk, turn off the camera. Go do my other stuff. That's it. All right, I gotta get out. I didn't have any lunch today. I'm like, I think my liver has been partially digested at this point. I'm out of water. I'm out of coffee, okay? I can't spend any more time here. I love you guys. I'll be back very, very soon. Peace.